You call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners on September 5th. Let me do a roll call.
Commissioner Ernst,
Here.
Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Rollins, Commissioner Vogelsang, Commissioner Wright.
Changes to the agenda. Nope. Public requests. Okay.
My name is Harold Chaffee, 6200 Northwest Second Avenue, president of Keep Calm from Boca. I was watching the meeting on YouTube, and it cut off just as Craig. I'm sorry. Greg Ernst asked a question about something about giving the land to the city, having them do something with it, or develop it. And I know that the lawyer started an answer, an explanation, but I didn't really get it. Is that on the record, off the record?
The video that was posted, there's a musical interlude that takes place about that time, but after the music, there's just audio that plays on the YouTube video. We have the audio recording after that because we lost the video feed.
Okay.
So it should be the discussion should be in full on there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Nobody's on that. Okay. We'll move on from there. So we do not have any minutes to approve from the last board meeting. They are not completed yet, so we'll be doing that at the next meeting. Regular business. First one, online participation at meetings discussion. Brianne.
Commissioners, in light of some of the things that occurred last meeting with online participation, we just wanted to have an open dialogue. If this is something that everybody wants to continue, we certainly can look at other options, but I'd let Mr. Gorin weigh in on whether or not it's required. And I will say the city does not have online participation. You can watch it online, but you cannot participate online. And it is something for you all to decide on based on people that do weird things to meetings.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Given the events of this past meeting and just as a predicate to this discussion, as you may remember, during COVID, the governor entered an executive order at the height of COVID, and essentially provided that city commissioners, county commissioners, district commissioners could actually meet on a gallery-based relationship, which is an online setting, and could have a legal quorum established by virtue of having a gallery type situation, whether it be by Zoom or WebEx or by Teams or Skype or some other medium. And that was a very limited order that the governor entered, which allowed for the public's business to be conducted, but through a gallery-based or a cloud-based or a digitally based relationship where no physical presence was required. The premise for the order, as you may remember, was not in the context of anything except quorum requirements. But when COVID essentially was no longer an issue for the governor or for the administration, the executive order was essentially removed. Many government agencies during that time, however, adopted emergency ordinances, emergency resolutions, emergency orders, and administrative activities to essentially provide for this access without being physically present at a meeting. The governor deleted the order. He repealed the order, which meant that physically present commission members from special districts, cities, counties, etc., had to attend meetings to be able to have a physical quorum. Then the issue became, what do you do about the public? And the answer is that under current law, there is no express requirement that the kind of situation you provide here is legally required. So for example, right now, if a member of the public were to seek access to your meeting, they could, technically speaking, under the hybrid custom and practice we've established here, they could technically call in and be on a gallery, much like was the case last week on a Zoom call. That's not legally required. It was a policy that's a kind of a hangover or a hybrid from your prior activities. It's not illegal to have it, but it's not legally required to be conducted or to be had. The second part of which is that a member of the public, if they now choose to be heard at a public meeting, whether it's a district meeting or a city government, county government, they can come to the meeting physically. There's no bars, there's no restrictions in this building or any other to come to the podium and make a presentation. So in some governmental agencies, for example, members of the public will submit letters or lengthy emails of some kind and ask the clerk to read it into the record. Correspondingly, there's no legal requirement that that also be done as a matter of law. If you want to be heard at a meeting, come to the meeting and show up and make a presentation at the podium. It is not inappropriate, however, for the clerk or for the director or for some source within the organization to accept an email or a letter and say, Mr. Smith at XYZ address submitted a letter or an email about a particular topic that's under discussion or not, and it's being filed for the record, but there's no legal requirement to read that into the record. So right now, your meetings are being streamed, as I understand it, still. And the access to the public is still theoretically available to members of the public. Sorry. So for example, last week, the phrase is called Zoom bombed. It's not uncommon to have happened where unbeknownst to any one of us on the dais or professional staff, someone was able to access the meeting and was able to do something very profane and very inarticulate in the context of what was there. We didn't see it physically because we're sitting here, but the advice given to me was something fairly offensive was in fact recorded unintentionally, not knowing what it was. Some local governments have even allowed for public comment, only for public comment. They dial in by phone and watch the meeting online, because most agencies do provide their public meetings to be streamed, and we do stream our meetings. But that does not mean that you have a streaming situation where someone could watch the stream and dial in and be heard if they chose to be heard. So there are some options, but the legal stance that we had offered to the chair and members of the board this evening is that what you have now is beyond what the law requires. You certainly have the ability to continuously provide for streaming video of your meetings, but there's no legal obligation to provide for access through that process during any one of your meetings publicly. I'm happy to answer questions. This is a bit of an interesting twist and turn, but get a look at the reason why how we got here. We got here because of COVID. And during COVID, a lot of ingenious things occurred, and many people that didn't even know what Zoom was back then. Zoom was created, and evolved over time. WebEx didn't exist. Teams became a new concept, and Skype, although it existed, it was less used. All of which are or even GoToMeeting, which I've seen a lot of government agencies use. They had contracts with the provider. All of that is not legally required. Except interestingly, there are some entities, for example, regional planning councils of 3 or more counties and school districts are able to use video conferencing and what is called CMT, which is Communications Media Technology. CMT, it's defined by statute because they're specifically expressly provided for by law. So school districts, regional planning councils statewide of 3 or more counties are able to still utilize CMT as a premise for having their meetings where the public can still make access and where board members can also be accessible. But that's only because state law expressly provides for it. It's not the case for special districts, and has not been the case for special districts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I plan to be out of town for the first October meeting. Will I still be able to access via Zoom?
By the way, if I can, you can actually, in some government agency we represent, they actually provide that accessibility for public officials, electeds, to get access, to gain access to that process, which is not otherwise publicly available, but available in the event that a member is unable to attend.
Yes.
Basically, we were Zoom bombed in the last meeting, but is there, so we use Zoom, and was there a technical feature that was not turned on or that could be turned on that eliminates that, and what prevents it?
We can turn on filters and things like that, but I will say Zoom said like nothing is 100% foolproof from people hacking and working behind the scenes to try to crack into meetings. So we can turn it on where people can't share their video screens, and we can try to set up more restrictions or require people to go through the process of authenticating themselves to get into the meetings. Any of those things would just delay their access if they didn't know the night of. We plan to continue to record the meetings on Zoom and post them that way, and so that the board members can join virtually, regardless of your decision tonight. If you want to look at other software, we can do that too. But there are options. It's just nothing is foolproof.
To Steve's point, though, if any one or two board members want to participate via Zoom and use their laptop, they can, and they'll be able to communicate, no problems. So the options are turn on some extra filters, but there's no guarantee that we'll capture everything. Or we just turn it off completely for everyone except the view capability. They'll hear view and sound, but they cannot raise their hand and participate in future meetings that cause that. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate, to be honest with you, because we've always, I think as a group, we've prided ourselves in transparency, engaging the community, even though we have two people here tonight. Thank you. We also don't have a strong demand from the public to participate. Is it worth the risk? So.
Raise an interesting issue, Commissioner, because I was asked the question, which I can publicly discuss with you, which is what do you do with what was taped at last week's meeting? And that's a very unique question because you're not allowed to destroy a public record. However, what was allegedly a part of a public record was something which was, I can't really explain it, but it was obscenity, quite frankly. It was something that would not otherwise be part of a public meeting. My best answer is it should be sequestered and deleted. Because at the end of the day, it was not part of the meeting. It was not something that was your meeting. It's not the public's meeting. It was an intervention by a third party that accessed the public medium for a personal purpose. That's a stretch, perhaps, to argue that. I mean, technically speaking, it's still a part of, it's in the public domain, but it's not your public meeting. It was something which was obscene. It was profane. It was inappropriate, and frankly, it was not requested by anybody on the dais or elsewise. So. The answer is that you can't avoid anything like that in the future. You can try, I suspect, through filtering and through other digital devices that might otherwise preclude access and entry. But the possibility still exists that there's someone out there that can hack their way in and still find a way to get to the meeting.
Well, for many years, we were able to conduct our business without Zoom and without even live streaming, which I think is important that we continue that aspect of. And so long as, commissioners are able to Zoom in without interference and be still counted as part of the quorum, I would be in favor of, the live streaming, but discontinuing the opportunity for folks to Zoom into our meeting for rather than having to risk even one additional time. That was such egregious act that I just don't think I would like to see that happen again under any circumstance. And so I'd make the motion that we discontinue the Zoom portion of our meeting for the public and avoid and not allow the public to log into the Zoom meetings.
Second.
Should we do? Yes.
Means they can Zoom, they can look in at the meeting, but they can't verbally participate in the meeting or take over anything. I agree. Yep.
We hopefully maybe engage people to like come to the meetings more often if they do want to say things. You never know.
The agenda and the packet so folks can see what's on the agenda. And if they have an interest in it, like Harold and Barbara, they can join us at our meetings. So we're not staring at a blank wall. Okay.
Should we go ahead and do a roll call on this?
Commissioner Ernst, Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Rollins, Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright. Motion passes.
Chair, Commission, the answer about this motion is that public speakers who seek to be heard in public, the attendance of it to be heard. Which is the law. And the doors are always open, locked to the public, and you need to.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 2, Patrick Park Playground discussion.
Commissioners, I just wanted to give you a brief update where we are with the Patrice Playground renovations and get any input or concerns that you may have as we move this forward, because I know we're on an expedited schedule. So I'm going to go through a presentation on the screen here, and I'm going to do my best to do this quickly because I know we have another meeting coming up at 6. So we'll start with this. This is the current, hold on. This is the current Patrice Park playground. And so right here, these are the two main parts. This is the splash pad back here, and here is the pirate ship. And everybody loves the pirate ship. It has, it looks really cool, but it is small, and it's just stairs and some climbers and a big slide. And then over here on this side, we have swings and a lot of open space. And then there's hidden in these trees is another climber. And then of course the boulders that kids really like a lot. And then over on this part, in all these trees, we have some interactive electronic features that no longer work, and some other climbing structures that are outdated as well. So the idea now is to enhance this entire playground, make it all accessible. And so we started that process with WZA, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. This was in your agenda packets. There's been a couple more revisions to this main thing, and I'll send it out. I just got this today because I went to Patch and did some more work with the architect yesterday on this. So a few more things were changed as far as some swings added over here in the sensory area on this side. But I'm gonna get to some more colorful pictures. I think you guys have had a chance to look this over in your packets. But we've added a lot of shade to the playground. So anywhere where tree coverage is not happening, you'll see shade coverage across the playground, including the splash pad, which currently there is no shade on the splash pad. We're gonna have the, I'm just excited about my little spotlight here. This will be the restroom over here. This in the tree area is going to be a sensory area. And then everything here, this is the splash pad, and this will be a new structure with a lot of cool interactive features and equipment. So we're also, one of the main things that we talked about when we met with the Ogden family and other people in the public who have kids, they take these kids to this playground, was the sight and the vision. And so we tried, it's going to be difficult at Patch because we have a lot of tree coverage and we don't want to remove those trees, but we created a sight line from the entryway there. So you can see a lot of the playground from this point, and also from the back of the splash pad as well. You'd have more visual coverage as well. So we've added some parking spaces, some ADA parking spaces, including a accessible van drop off as well. So that'll be at the front of the park. This is an idea of what the restroom will look like. I'm going to show you the inside of the restroom. It's, we've got some things here. It's completely, all these restrooms are accessible, but we've also got on this restroom is an adult size changing table, which we currently don't have in any of our parks. So that will be a new feature. We're going to have the playground will be fenced in because we have kids who elope and run off. And of course the parking lot is right there. So that's dangerous. So the playground will be fenced in, but you'll have access to the restrooms from the sidewalk over here as well to come in this side, or you can come in on this side to the restrooms. So the surface that we're looking at is artificial turf, not the same as what you have on the fields, but it's, I'm sure you've seen it on a lot of playgrounds. They're putting a lot of artificial turf out instead of the rubber surface. And so this turf is going to be color coordinated. It's going to be some designated areas, and there'll be some built-in activities on it, like the tic-tac-toe, twister. I'll show you those in more detail. We'll have these features here. So those will be part of the turf, and the kids can jump around and play on those as well. Here is bank shot basketball, and this is a new feature. The only other one of these in Palm Beach County is at a park in Green Acres, and I went there, had a lot of fun there. But basically you have these hoops, and this is an accessible way to introduce basketball and shoot basketball into different, the hoops are different sizes, different angles, and you can stand on, there's 3 little dots in front, and those dots give you points if you want to keep points. But it's completely accessible, and it's made so that all kids can play. You don't have to be on a team. You don't have to learn all the rules. You can just go throw a basketball in there and have fun with that. Do you want me to take questions during this? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, about the basketball.
Mhm.
So, is it regular size basketballs, and do the kids have to bring the balls, or do we keep them
Yes,
there?
you would bring your basketballs there. And I will tell you, at Freedom Park in Green Acres, the question is like, how will kids know? They put a bank shot basketball next to their new playground, and people knew. And the kids ran back and forth between the basketball, between the playground. It was very, very busy, very active. And I thought it was a lot of fun. And it's a great way for kids who don't want to play on a team, or don't feel comfortable on a team, or don't have the physical ability to keep up with a team. They can come here and still have access to basketball.
Just wondering if there's a way that we can have a location to like keep basketballs there too for kids who don't know to bring a basketball.
We can probably put something at the community center.
We might have to replace them quite often, but I think it would be worth it for kids who don't know to bring a basketball.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. I know we have shade there for the kids that are using it. What about shade for the and seating for the adults that are there?
Yes, there's going to be a lot of seating added and some covered picnic tables and all. Let me go back to that. Hold on. So around, let me get my spotlight again. Around all these trees is bench seating, those dotted lines, that's the bench seating around there. We're adding picnic tables back here, which is not on this. That's another feature that's been added. We have picnic tables throughout here and everything's shaded and each table will be accessible as well. Currently, there's no accessible tables out there.
Is there actual shade other than from a tree?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, these are covered.
Yeah,
These are covered little pavilions when you walk into the park. And then back by the splash pad, there'll
okay,
be another
with
one.
a good sight line.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We could. People, it's sign that's all available at the Rutherford Center, check-in. It's like, it's a $5,000 deposit.
A lot of parents do keep a lot of sports stuff in their trunks. I have basketball, soccer ball, volleyball. Everything's ready for wherever I go, but well, you need to get on it, Miss Wright. Here's an idea of some of the equipment that we're looking at for the playground. This structure is accessible and kids can also climb in it. So it's for all kids. It's not just kids with disabilities. It's everybody that can use this. And these are some different structures that we'll have out there. And this will be attached to kind of like a spider web sort of structure that has ramps to get on it and go around to all this equipment. Here's another look at some of the playground equipment that we'll have out there. And these are just examples of the equipment. The equipment will actually match and be color coordinated to fit the design. But I just wanted to show a little bit of some of these things that will be out there. We'll have swings out there. We'll have the belt swings that are currently out there. Right now, there's 2 bars, 2 belts, I think 4 infant swings. So we're going to have some of this swing along seats so the parent and child can swing together. We'll have some accessible swings and then the regular belt swings as well. And lots of things to climb on and some monkey bars for the kids that love that. And then some musical equipment and sound equipment as well. And then I'm going to get here to my favorite part is the splash pad renovation. So I was there a couple weekends ago. This is the current splash pad and you can see it's pretty worn and a lot of the water features, there's 2 cannons. The palm trees kind of drip a little bit and then the mast of the ship drops water down, but there's not a whole lot of water spray happening other than the water cannons. And if you're able to wrestle the water cannon out of whatever kid has it, that's great for you, but the other kids don't always get it. So the new splash pad is going to be like this and it's going to be under shade and we're going to have a lot more equipment on that splash pad, including some water spouts that come up out of the bottom. And then we have about 8 different features on this playground as well. And so some of those features are here and you'll see those. These are all accessible as well. And some of them are, you can bring, some kids bring toys to the park and they can play with those and the cascade thing. So there'll be a lot more interactive things on the splash pad. And I'm going to play you this cool video if I can figure out how to work this as a mouse. Hold on. Oh, look, there's the video of the playground, the splash pad. No water cannons. Those just squirt up. And then if you notice on the sides, there's also some misters so that parents who are out in the heat all day chasing their kids around can also get a little misting while they're out there. And this will be shaded as well. Yes.
What I was asking about the shade because I was at a water splash pad like that in near Nashville, and there was no shade for the adults sitting around there at all.
Mhm.
But one thing that they did have that I thought the kids were attracted to was it's a pole, and at the top of the pole they had buckets, and then they had something that would go around there and fill the bucket up, and then when the bucket filled up, it tipped over.
Yes,
And so that was very popular.
we have that out here at this splash pad too.
Okay.
They're a little bit smaller because some kids can't take the whole bucket, the heavy buckets, but there will be a little tipping structure out there too on the splash pad. Let me see if I can go back and find it. Yes. So this one will fill up and kind of dump on kids. And then this is just a little bit, but not quite the bucket vibe that this one has.
like four or five different buckets around.
Yes,
So
yes.
they would be chasing the buckets, trying to get under the water when it's coming out. And it was very cute. And
Yes.
they were entertained for hours doing that.
I think a new splash pad would be a big hit out there. A lot of kids try to go on the splash pad, but right now there's just not a lot of water interaction on it. So this is where we're at with the playground, and I just wanted to get a little feedback tonight from everybody because we're going to be finishing up this design hopefully soon and have a final one for you guys to take a look at. But if there's anything that you feel is missing or anything you want to see done differently, we can work on that and get it incorporated now so that we can, move this along.
My question, there's no electronic anything, right?
Mm,
Good.
no. Doesn't hold up.
I'm not a big fan of electronics on the playground because they never work. And then the kids get frustrated because they don't know how to work them. I do like the benches around the trees because out there, I haven't been out there in a while because my kids are older. There were only like a couple of benches to sit on and that's it. So the more seating, the better. And then under these trees, is it just these?
That's where we're adding a little bit more equipment, and I'll send out the revised one today. They're adding swings to that side.
Okay.
So let me go back to
There's
the,
a lot of space over there.
yes, there is a lot of space over there. We wanted to make this somewhat of the calming area. I know at Sugar Sand Park, we have a little calming corner. It's hard to find calm at the Sugar Sand Playground. And a lot of people don't even see that little hole is there on the Sugar Sand Playground. But so over in,
Can't see it because it's so shaded. By
this
trees.
is completely covered in trees over here, but there is a whole section here. It's got the electronic equipment and some climbers. And so this will be where some swings are. There's going to be some of those cubbies that kids can get into and spin. And then there's also going to be the boulders from this part of the playground. We're going to move those over to this side. So that's one of the features that will stay on the playground and be relocated on this area over here. And we're finishing up some of the design in this section right now.
One question I have, I don't know if they have, there's something like this at, it's just a little covered little square area underneath the slides. And my kids used to use it as like a pretend like little restaurant thing. So I don't know if there's any kind of outdoor little house area that's open that kids can kind of use as like an area to pretend play.
I know what you're saying. I've been to the same restaurant. Yes. We'll look at this playground and
I'm just wondering
see if
there's
that's a
something like
spot for that. Sure.
Under the shade there.
Okay.
'Cause
Lighting for at night.
It's not open now at nighttime. So with the shade on it, it will probably not be accessible at nighttime.
Looks pretty good. So a couple questions for you. One is with so much tree coverage, are you cutting down any trees?
Keeping the trees and working around the trees,
Good.
and then using the trees for some shade out there. Like right now, it's actually one of our more shady playgrounds just because the tree canopy is so nice. But there are some sections that are really hot. I was stuck in them actually Sunday. So where there's not trees, we're going to have the coverage.
Okay. And I second Aaron's thought of some kind of little cubby or little house, maybe one or two of them. It actually is pretty fun if you have different ones. So I've been to those same restaurants and same houses, so it'd be good to add. And the last thing I would say is it possible, maybe they're in there, but some kind of picnic tables or high top tables and
There are going to be some picnic tables, and we're going to add some tables to the bench seating around the trees. And then there'll be also over on this side. Well, I want my little spotlight back. Oh, I'm giving up here. I know, but I can't find my little dot. Okay. So I'm just learning how to use this new thing. So there is going to be benches out there. There's going to be covered seating, and there will be tables added as well.
The finishing touch there is what you talked about was the fence and
Mhm.
the fence. I would say spare no expense on the fence. So it's not a fence that is chain link that kids get their fingers stuck in.
I want that in the minutes.
So,
Written
yeah.
out, spare no expense.
Let's make it nice,
Okay.
and as I've told you before, there's some who've come to me and said, are we building a park for 5% of the population? And I don't think you are. You've done a phenomenal job. Let's make sure that it's better than what we've had previously. So I think it's a really good layout and I look forward to seeing it.
Okay, awesome.
think this is great. And with all the different and innovative types of play equipment that is going to be installed, I think that this puts us at the forefront of this kind of park, a park that's ADA compatible and is still at the same time usable by any kid. And the one thing I wanted to add is possibility of maybe using signage to direct kids to certain parts of the park.
And making sure that it's noted that this is also for kids with all different abilities. One of the things that some of our groups, we met with Allie Reeves, who runs the Chase's Place program at the YMCA. And one of the things she's encountered at playgrounds is when she comes with her bus, a lot of parents have made comments or they take their kids out of there. So we want people to know that this is for all kids. And so the idea of signage and kind of breaking down the different areas, we'll have a lot of signage out there that's going to have Braille signage as well. And then another thing we've talked about was possibly a mural on that bathroom as part of Art in Public Places that depicts a diverse group of kids playing together. So
Mural is a great idea. And I also want to thank publicly David and Stacy Ogden for their input. Excuse me, without them, this wouldn't have been done. And I know they've been involved every step of the way. So if they're watching, thank you very much. If they're not watching, thank you very much.
Steve, would you be able to help Craig and I with a mural? I'm just teasing, but I think that's a great idea too. The question I was going to ask was, this place was originally named Pirates Cove. Is that what it's known as to this date?
still out there on the sign, but we may,
Okay, because I didn't see any pirate
it
information.
may be Patch Reef Cove.
Yeah,
We'll see.
well, whatever. I just bring that up and to have you think about it. I don't think we have to name the park, but Elaine Kleinman, who was the one that was instrumental in that, is going to be asking me, well, why'd you change the name? And I said, we didn't. We just dropped the name. So, and if at some point in the future we want to name it, but I'm happy with it just being, the accessible playground and without having to name it. I mean, it was cute when we had the pirate ship there and it was a pirate theme, but we've moved away from that now. So I'm just putting that out there.
One concern I do have is the turf. I love having the turf. The only thing is that all of it won't for sure be shaded. Not all of it. There will be like bits and pieces that will have some exposure. And it does get really, really hot. And there will be kids who are playing in the water area who run to the non-water area through the turf. So I'm wondering if there's turf, because the turf I have in my backyard gets super duper hot on feet.
We're definitely not getting that turf then.
Yes.
We're going to
I'm
get
just
playground.
curious.
We're going to get playground turf. And I've been to several playgrounds in the county that use this turf for playgrounds, and they have similar splash pads, all that. And I have somebody who runs barefoot and prefers to be barefoot all the time, and it's not a problem.
Comment? Good? I don't think so, no. All right, moving on. Payroll and invoices, Greg?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval of invoices in the total amount of $427,581.97.
Roll call.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Rollins, Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright. Motion passes.
Okay, reports and discussion items.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to randomly draw the names for the second meeting in October when we do the Patch Reef pickleball operator presentation. So I'm going to draw those names right now in front of everybody. That was for next week. This is for the one in October. That's the operator. So they're all stuck together. This is great. Okay. Our first presenter will be YMCA. Second will be the APP. And our final presenter will be Paddle Tap. And the only other update I have is that the futsal surface is going in next week at Sugar Sand.
The city going to put in a operational bid?
They did not submit with the RFP.
Uh-huh.
They are willing to continue operating the tennis center and Patchogue pickleball. They, I can reach out to Rec Services and see how they want to move, but they did not submit an RFP.
But then the question is to Sam, could we consider that even though they didn't respond to the RFP?
You go through the process of determining an operator through the RFP process, you might be shortchanging the opportunity to have the city as the participant in that discussion.
I guess the question would be if we didn't like any of the three operators and the revenues that they were throwing off, and the city had a better revenue stream for us, then that might be a consideration.
Legally, it could be.
Okay.
I mean, you have an existing relationship with the city on an ongoing basis, and to the extent that there's an opportunity to leave that basis alone or otherwise implement a different approach, the answer is it's a governmental relationship that you have.
Yeah. So would it be inappropriate at this point to ask Brian to contact the city to see if they had any thought in that area?
If I respond, Madam Chair, legally, the answer would be if there's a willingness to do that, they should be contacted and make sure the record reflects that at least an inquiry was made.
Okay, what was an inquiry?
Willing to run the pickleball center as our operator, because they run the tennis center, so they'll just run that together. But they just didn't submit an RFP. They're there and we can continue the relationship with them if we wanted to, but they didn't submit an RFP. And I know that they've had a lot of changes in personnel. I'm not sure if that was why, but I have talked to them and they are interested if we don't choose one of these people.
Well, I guess it's the economics that I'd be concerned about. If you're hiring somebody else to run it, what is their fee going to be for the play? And it will be comparable to what we have at the tennis center now. And those are unknowns at this point, Brianne. So I just submit that to the commissioners to say, if we get through this process and I don't feel like there's responsive to what I'm thinking about, I might recommend that we further explore it with the city.
Numbers in our budget, just not an official proposal, but they did submit the budget numbers. As you recall, we removed those because we don't know who's going to operate it yet, but they do have that financial. So I'll get that information to you.
Yeah, if you could get that to the commission before we have our interviews. Thanks.
Would be concerned with though is like the city's having a lot of hard time hiring people, and to get people hired for the pickleball and like somebody who really knows pickleball and how to run a great facility, because we don't want the status quo at this new facility, right? We want something that's going to be that's going to stand out as a great pickleball facility. So it's just a little concerning that they didn't put in an RFP for it and propose what they would do there.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying, keeping all options open here. And I know in talking to somebody from the city just recently, they have a lot of job openings right now that they can't fill. So, I mean, what you're saying is spot on, but I think that, I'd like to know what their revenue stream was from their operational, if in fact they did. I'm not saying, I'm just giving that as something to think about, so.
The best position, Bob, that if whatever we go through in the process, we have the city is already the vendor managing it. And if we just choose to leave it there, we made no change, we can move forward. So we're okay. I think the bigger question for this group is, so how, and I don't expect that we're going to pick the operator next week or whenever this meeting is, but I think we should prioritize what's important. And if we prioritize what's important, that will kind of guide us a little bit on our selection process. And I'll give you an example. I mean, is it this is public space. Are we allowing a third party to come in and become a revenue stream? Is that what we want? I think what we want is recreation. And so there's an element of the success, capturing the elements of that are successful in this community with pickleball. To me, what's important is El Rio Park. It's free and it's got a lot of usage. That's beautiful. If this is free, it will get a lot of usage, but you may not get an operator. So there's that balance. I'd also, quite frankly, like to see, some benefit for like company teams or team sports, just like what we have with Sabre and different things. That's very valuable, having the team-based thing. A lot of times that just gets forgotten because the operator wants to run it for a profit and they want to charge for it. That's the beauty of our group. We don't have to charge for everything. We're paying for it. So there is an element that maybe the city is the right one. I don't know. I want to go into it kind of open-minded, but I think we should kind of start thinking about what is our number one priority so that whoever comes in and presents to us, at least they can cover how are they going to do something for the greater good of the community as opposed to themselves enriching their own organization and taking over a part of a public park.
I think my main purpose in getting that there was to keep all of our options open, Craig, and looking at some of the other proposals for North Park. There have been some that have mentioned community relationships as important to their operation of that facility. So I think those, to your point, I have a short list of things that I'm really interested in, and you touched on them, as far as the cost of the recreation to the community, at the expense of the vendor, running it. So I think that those are the things that I'm looking at is exactly what you're saying. Somebody that can run that profitably, but at not taking advantage of the community in terms of what they're charging. Right.
That kind of outlined in the RFP of I know we have a selection process, but is it clear our kind of priorities as a group going into this?
I'll send you your ranking criteria from the RFP. I'll send that out to everybody. I didn't want to mix it up until you got through next week because that's a different ranking criteria, but I'll get it out to you as a separate one.
Process then is going to be, we're going to have the three vendors or come in and present. You have the option of staying with the city. We already know what they've estimated it would cost to operate. And then another meeting later, or that night, we're expecting to pick our vendor.
I think that's up to you guys if you decide that night, right?
Well, that's what we're gonna try to rank them and pick them that night. We never talked about this one, so.
So maybe we leave it open. Go into it that if it's obvious and, clear, then the next step would be asking Brianne to work with the vendor to develop an acceptable contract. If not, we'd be saying, okay, Brianne, go back and talk to them and ask these different questions to further define it. But I think the normal process is you have to pick them and rank them in order and say 1, 2, 3. And if you don't get what you want on the first one, you go to the second one. But this is not a.
Yes, I think you can rank them and then decide not to go with any as well. I don't think you're obligated to until you make that motion to award a contract to somebody.
Hang on, we have about 1 minute. Do we have a lot of reports and discussion items from everybody tonight? Sam? No report from Bob, Susie?
I got to visit the YMCA. I would encourage everyone to go take a tour with Brian and Ann. It's very enlightening.
Meeting with Madam Chair and Brianne. It was very enlightening. Mr. Holloway gave a good overview of Gumbo Limbo and the coastal stewards, and I did not stay for the latter half of it, which I understand was not possible.
Steve?
I'm good.
Okay.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang, Commissioner Wright.
Yes,
Motion passed.
we are adjourned.